Good evening and welcome once again to another Love2D tutorial. We're here with our button module. And when we last left, we had drawn a button such as this using a particular font. And really, there was no interactivity with it or anything of that nature. What we would like to do today is solve that particular problem of there not being any interactivity, if you know what I mean. No clicking, no mouse over. What we want to do is to change the color when a mouse over occurs. We want to change the color when the button is pressed down. And we also want to send possibly an event when the button has been clicked. In addition, we should like to be able to enable and disable that button and have the button visually show that it has been enabled or that has been disabled, if you will. So that's what we're going to do. I think what we should start with quickly is we are currently hard coding our button label in this manner. And believe that we would like to specify that when we create our button. How about that? So let's do that. Let's do that here, and we'll say label, so that we can label our button. And we'll say self.label equals label. And with that, we can grab this here, and instead of this new, we'll do that. So it's the little things that make the difference, isn't it? That's what I always say. So let's see. Let's put in now a button name press. That's me. Let's make this was the width, right? Let's make our button a little bit longer and see if it can contain press me. Yes, it does contain it, but as you see, it isn't centered correctly because we also hadn't really taking care of all of that nonsense as well. So perhaps we should also do that. What we can do is there are some wonderful APIs in the Love.graphics system, which will allow us to grab fonts. What we want to do is we want to measure our font, and we want to measure the width of our font as well as the height of our text in that particular font. So what we would like to do is we want to get the current font that's set, and you see right here gets the current font object. So what we will do here, we could have this as some sort of a we could cache it when we first create the button, but if we ever want to change the fonts, then it might become a bit of an issue. So for now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and grab that font every time. I know it seems somewhat wasteful, but for now, just for now, and it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of buttons on the screen all the time. Don't worry about it. We can always fix this later. But I want to grab the current font here, and that will be love.graphics .get font. So now we have our font. We want, then after that, we want the font width, and that's going to be font, or our current font, get width. And if you look over here, there is the, well, where is it? We should probably go here and go here, and you see there is a get width right there. See, and that takes as the input the text that you would like to get the width of, and that's going to be our label that we just defined right up here. So we're going to get the width of the current text in our label, and we also would like to get the height of the font, so we'll do font.getHeight. And for some reason this doesn't work exactly like I think it should anyway. You'll see that just in a moment. So now, instead of doing these little fidgety calculations, which really only were valid for that specific text at that specific font, let's make it more general. First of all, we want to center the text in the button. So that means we want this center position here for our X value. Is that correct? Or should we? I believe that's right. That gives us the center where the button's going to be, but that will put our text, the left-hand corner will begin there. Actually, we can should be able to run it and see that. It should be in the middle of the left corner should be in the middle of that button, which I guess it is. Because you have the position of the button itself, which should again be in the middle of the button, and then you're subtracting the width of the button divided by 2. And additionally, what we want to do in order to center it is we want to take that font width and divide that by 2 and subtract that also, and that should move the button over. Yeah, so this really should just be like this, because really we're in the same. This is moving the box, so really our center position is this. If you remember, sorry about that. So we want to go center position minus the width of our text, and as you can see here, we have that nice and done. Now we want to take the self.position.y. And we want to do the same thing, really, which would be we want to subtract the font height divided by 2 normally, but this is where it gets a little, I guess, a little bit strange for me. I see that doesn't look completely correct to me. It looks like it should be shoved up a little bit more. That may be dependent upon the font that I'm using. I'm using this crazy pixel font, which maybe we'll change that later. But until then, I'm going to change this until it gives me more of what I want. And you see, actually, that's not what I want. Really, maybe let's just try something crazy. Just something crazy. Yeah, see. So we want something. Maybe we will just leave it at font height divided by 2, because that really should be what it is, even though that doesn't look right. Like I said, it could be just because of the way that font is set up, the particular font we're using. We can go get a different font. Matter of fact, why don't we go do that real quick? Let's see. Do the font. Let's see if we can find some sort of nice font. Something that is. I don't know, not fancy, not what's cartoon anyway. That's not bad. I like this font. Let's look for something with. Let's see. I like that one. Free for personal use, free for personal. I'd like to find one that's sort of just open, 100% free. There's a Super Mario. Let's do that one. That one looks very interesting. So I'm going to grab that one. I'll save it off, and I'll come over here to my invisible screen that you can't see, and I will unzip it. And then we'll open this here, and we'll put our font, which is, there it is. So I'll put that in, not the sound effects, so I'm going to put it right in there. So Super Mario 256, we'll see what this does. We'll see if this works. We'll see what it looks like. So instead of setting in main our font to pixeled, let's set it to Super Mario 256 and see what happens. Oh, maybe a little bit, that looks better. That looks like it's more centered. Let's go up a little bit, make it a little bit larger. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. They're pretty readable. I think it's pretty good. In any case, I think I like it better than the pixeled font. I'm going to go ahead and delete the pixeled font. We're going to go with Super Mario 256. And once again, we downloaded here, 100% free. And it's by this lovely fellow right here, F. Suarez 913. If you want to go grab it yourself, or you can go to the GitHub repository where I'll have all this stuff available. So now, would you agree that we look pretty good right here? So we're centered, and our button is nice and clean. So the next thing we need to do is we need to track the position of the mouse on the screen and send it to our button. So really what we want to do is we want to take this rectangular region and find out if the mouse is in that rectangular region. So let's make a local function, and let's call it mouse inbounds. We'll give it the button itself, and we'll give it the X and Y of the mouse. And we could do this, mouse X and mouse Y. And what we want to do here is we just want to do a simple rectangular comparison. So we will return X, or mouse X, which is wherever the mouse is. We want that to be greater than or equal to, so we'll start with the left and right side of this rectangular button. So the mouse X needs to be greater than or equal to the self position.x, and remember that was, we put that at the that's the middle of our button, so we actually want to go minus self dot width divided by 2, and also mouse X must be greater than, or I'm sorry, less than or equal to basically this whole thing plus half of the width. So we'll just change that sign. And additionally, we need to do the height. So we'll come down here and we'll say self. Basically, it's the same thing. Self.position.y minus self.height divided by 2. And whoops, sorry about that. We say mouse Y is greater than or equal to this, and mouse Y is less than or equal to this. Pow, like that. So that's our function. Mouse inbounds will tell us if the mouse X and Y are within our little bounding rectangle, i.e. our button. So something else that we will do is, right now, if you notice, we don't have an update, and I think that's probably a good place to put our code that's going to basically change the state of this button, the colors, whether it's been clicked, and all that good stuff. So let's put a button update function, and I'm going to go ahead and have it pass the delta time. And we're not going to use it now, but we may use it later in case we want to blink buttons and stuff like that. So first thing we need to do in mouse.update, and again, what we're doing here will probably change at some point if we get some sort of UI manager, so that the UI manager will just get the X and Y position of the mouse every frame, and then it will do all of the rectangular hit tests to all of the UI elements that need to be done, instead of all of the buttons getting their own mouse position. Basically, it's a lot of duplication. But for now, this is the way we're going to do it. We'll start out simple, and then we'll refine it later. So that ends up being love.mouse, and there is a function called getPosition. See, it returns the current position of the mouse. So it's pretty easy. And again, it returns it in X, Y. We'll go back over here. We can go to love.mouse, and you'll see right here that getPosition returns X and Y, so it returns the position of the mouse along the X and Y axis. So we'll grab that, and we also want to know if the left click button has been pressed, and we can go back here, and there is an isDown function. and you basically tell it which button you want to look at, and the index of a button. One is the primary mouse button, which is the left click, so that's what we'll use here. So we'll do love.mouse is down, and our button will be 1. So we need that. And then of course we want to know if the mouse is inbounds. So we're going to go ahead and use our function that we just created up there, and we'll give it the X and Y mouse coordinates there. And now all we're going to have to do here is we'll need to check what the colors need to be. Now, in addition, if you look here, we're setting the color to self.normal. Really, these colors are the button colors, but we need something that gives us the current button color. So let's do that, and let's just call it self.color. And when we create a button, we'll set it, and we'll have to do this down here. I kind of do a little separator here just to make sure they understand this. We'll set this to self.normal. So our starting color is self.normal. So now instead of saying self.color here, let's set it to self.normal. We'll set it to self.color. That way we can change this and then we can use it to indicate what state our button is in based on the color of the fill that we do for that button. So now back to update. So we have a couple of different things that we're going to need to check, because we have a couple of several states that we want to basically put it in. A normal state, which is the mouse cursor is not over it. The highlight state, mouse cursor is over but not pressed. Pressed state is the mouse cursor is over it and the left button is clicked. And self.disabled, which means it's really not interactable. It's the button itself is disabled, but still visible. So we've got a few states to take care of. So let's start by asking if the mouse is indeed in our bounds, right? So if it's in bounds and the left click button is not down, then let's say self.color equals self.highlight. Is that what it's called? Did we do? Is that what yeah, highlight. Okay, and let's say end for that, and we can also say else if in bounds and we do have a left click, then our self.color is going to be self.pressed. See what I'm doing here? And if we are not in bounds at all, then our self.color will go back to self.normal, right? Normal. Just like that. Make sense? I hope it does. Let's see. Do I have enough to give this a run? No, because we haven't added this to our main menu scene. We need to add our update function to main menu, update, and all we need to do is say self.button update. Let's try that. And if I mouse over it, does it change? Okay, it does change when I click. See that? But we need it also to change when I just come over it. So let's see, did I mess something up? It's very possible, ladies and gentlemen. It's very, very possible. So if we're inbounds and that's my problem, and we don't left click, then we want that highlight color. And I suspect, just kind of looking here, just thinking about it, that highlight color, we probably need to add a little bit more red to it. I'm just thinking it's probably going to be better. Let's give it a run and then we'll try it. So now when I come over, yep, we got a highlight. And you see it come over from here, here. So that's working good. Our rectangle check, point and rectangle check function is working. So if I press it, then it turns a lot brighter color. and then I let it go. See, that's working like we want it to. And then if I move off the button, then it automatically goes off, which well, we've got some other things to do here. One of the things is we're going to need to keep track, because what we want to do is, so our color is, when we left click and it's inbounds, we want to set the color to pressed, right? Well, we also need to keep track of what the previous, the left click button was last frame, so that if we let up off of it, well, that counts as a click if it was inbounds before and it's inbounds again. I'll show you. We're going to need another variable here. We'll call it self dot, let's call it previous left click, and we'll start it out with false, of course. But basically, this is just going to keep track of what the left click, the state of the left click button the previous frame was, and that's going to help us out a lot. So we're just going to set that at the end here, like so. And now what we can do is right in here, if we're inbounds and the mouse is not clicked, then what we want to do is we want to say if self.previous left click. So if it was clicked the last frame, that means that the user has just basically just clicked on the button. So push down in the button and let the mouse up inside the button. So then what we want to do is, for now, let's just print click, and we'll just end. We'll add some more stuff to that here in a minute. So let me enable the debug mode, and I think we've got all this set up. I'll bring the command window over here, so let's see. Yep, see, so I click down the button, let off, and you get a click. So what if I click down the button and I come over here and I let off? See, that doesn't work. We don't want that to work. Okay, so that's good. But if I go click, off, back on, I think that's a fine behavior. We can always change that later, but in any case, we're getting something that looks good. We can actually click the button and it knows that it's been clicked. That's fantastic. A beautiful thing. So let's also take care of this disabled state. So there are times that we may want to disable a button. So let's add a button enable function, and we'll take enabled as a parameter, which will be a Boolean, and we'll need another field for that. So let's call it interactable, because really it's not like the button's not going to be drawn, it's just not going to be interactable. So let's say that it starts out as true, and then we basically can set it in here to whatever the user would like to set. Now how does that change what we're doing here? Well, let's say we can let's do it here. Let's go ahead and do the math here. Let's say, not the math, the logic. Let's say if it's not enabled, then self.color equals self.disabled. Okay. All right, so if it's not enabled, then that's what's going to happen. And so in self.update, if that button is not, if it's not self.interactable, then we're just going to return, because we don't care about checking anything down here because it's not enabled. So we don't even want to mess with it. Yeah, I think yeah, because okay, so we're not setting any colors down here in draw, so we should all be fine. All of our color selection logic is right in here, and when we disable this, we should be good. Let's give this a try and see what happens. But first, actually, yeah, let's do that. And right here, let's say self.interactable enable and false. So when you click it, it should disable itself. Let's see if that works. Oh yeah, baby. Look at that. He turned that gray color that I had set. Yep, so he's disabled. Later on, we'll want to probably add a font color for the disabled button as well. That's another possibility or an additional configuration thing that we might want to add, which is change the color of the text as well whenever you're doing all the different mouse overs, the normal, the highlighted, and the clicked and everything. But I think for now, maybe we just stick with what we have. So that works. And let's go back to this. Let's come over here in the main menu just for fun, and let's grab some keys. So we have this, remember our key manager. Let's say if key down, escape, then love.event.quit. So we'll quit the whole shebang. And let's say else if I'm going to grab this, I'm going to cheat. Else if the space key is down, right? Then let's say self.button enable. Let's do not self.button.enable or interactable. So that way we can just change it as we like, just for fun and for testing. So we should be able to come in here and press the space bar and set it interactable and non-interactable. Pretty cool. Okay, so that works. Lovely. One other thing, we need some events when these buttons are clicked. So what I want to do is actually use our events, little events module here. So in order to do that, we need to come over here to main, and let's do a require, because we're going to grab that module. We'll just call it event, and we'll say lib.events. We're gonna create a global event module that we can use throughout our code. Maybe that's not the best as far as code practice, but it's done all the time. I see a lot of it. It works. It's fine. So we're just going to do it. Events. So this _G is the global event of the global table, and we're adding an entry in it called events, and we're going to set that to a new event, an event manager. And if you look over here and you remember from that one that we did, event must exist. I'm going to just go ahead and say false. So now we have an events manager. So we should, instead of doing this, we should be able to say, and if let's go look at events. What we want to do is we want to say invoke. So invoke, and what should the name of this be? Let's put how about on button click, and then we'll pass the button itself. That way we can look at, typically what I do with these, and I find it works pretty good, actually I think it works great, is I just base my button click response off of the label name of the actual button. Of course, you can get fancy and do whatever you want, but this kind of gives you a little bit of more flexibility, and you can add stuff into the button class itself, and then you can just pull them out however you want. So this should send this on button click event, right? And let's just run it real quick and make sure that I don't, yeah, okay. Index global G, oh, yeah. It'd be a capital G, friends. Capital G, capital underscore G. Yeah, so that's working. It's sending the event. So then let's subscribe to that event in main menu. So let's hook that event. So that's G events hook. So I'm using this function here, and we want to hook on button click, and we'll say we'll make a function called on click. So we'll have it here. We'll say function on click, and we'll say button button end, and let's just print the button dot label. And we can also do this. We can say button dot or colon enable, and we can disable it here just to see that it actually works. And I think, yeah, see, cool, huh? And see the labels right here. Let me toggle it back on, and we'll click it, and it should, oops, all that went away. Why did it go away? We'll close it. So we let's say button enable. Let's just leave it like this. So we'll say button clicked, and we'll just add that onto, we'll pin that on, and let's see, is that all I wanted to do? I think so. Let's just run it again. We'll bring this over here. Click, 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 click. Yep, look at that. If I disable it, click it, doesn't work. If I enable it, click it, it should work. Beautiful. Something else we probably, and I should be able to hit escape. Let's see, what else? The scene manager. So we have scene, add, remove, and so we have this destroy method. So we probably should, yeah. So when the scene is destroyed, then we should probably remove our event handlers for our buttons. You know what I mean? Destroy. So then what we'd want to do is we'd want to come over here and say self dot, no, we'd want to say g dot events dot unhook, and this function, actually just grab this whole chunk here. We want to unhook this stuff, and that's actually, do we switch here? Do we call it? We do. We call an enter. So really, this should actually be in a function called enter, as I see here. So whenever we enter this function, we should hook our events. And you know what? We should have, oh, we do. We have an exit. So let's do that. Let's have, instead of this, we'll have exit. So when we enter a function, we'll hook up our button events. When we exit the function, or exit the scene, we will unhook our button events. And how was it we switched scenes? That was in main, wasn't it, last time? What were the buttons? Okay, comma and period. Let's see if this actually works. So I'll bring my command window over. We should be able to, yep. We should be able to switch scenes, do our little punch, and then we should be able to switch scenes back, press a button. Yeah. And notice that if when we entered the scene and we kept on and we didn't correctly unsubscribe, it should be calling it multiple times, but it's not. Let's quickly verify that it is indeed calling it every time. Just for fun, we'll print enter, and we'll print here, we'll print exit. So we should be able to see this come in and out of that. So that should be called enter, exit, enter test. And then if we go back, enter, exit. Let's check one more time here. Yep, there's the enter for this. Yep. Okay, cool, man. That is working. Something I did notice though just now is the first time we click, watch this, I'll show you. Check this out. Okay, I'm going to press it and you won't see the event the first time. Press, release. Nothing. Press, release. It works. Just one more time. I think. Okay, that's why I wasn't focused. I wasn't focused on this window. That's my problem. I was actually focused over here on this one. So I click this. Whoops. Click this to focus, and I should just press. Yeah, okay. Never mind. It's all good. It's because I had focused on this, and this still highlights even though this isn't the focus. Then I have to press to focus, and then that's why. Okay, so everything's working great. So I think we're going to end it here. So we've got our little button to work. We've actually gotten it to we have it generating callbacks. We can actually also disable the button. Maybe next time we'll add a disabled text color to our button as well. That's going to be nice so that we can actually use it to switch scenes. We can use it to do all sorts of cool stuff. So just a little bit of UI introduction here. Yeah, so we'll see you next time, and glad you stopped by. Thanks.